Hi, this is Stu Tinker from SK Tours in Derry, Maine, and I'm listening to the Stephen King podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the latest episode of the Stephen King podcast. It's Valentine's Day when we are recording this, and so I don't know when you're going to hear it, but I hope you had a great Valentine's Day with your loved ones and family. And as usual, I'm here with my co-host, Hans. Happy Valentine's, Hans.
Thank you. I'm delighted to spend it with you.
Just don't tell our wives. Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so this one's going to be, we've got quite a bit of news, and we're going to revisit The Stand, since that's the next book on the list from the Stephen King Revisited site. And part of that was Hans and I both rewatched the miniseries, which I hadn't done in quite a long time, so that was very interesting. And
yes.
We'll get to all that fun Stand stuff, but first, as usual, we have the news. Welcome, welcome. Do not fear the door that lies before you. We will protect you. We are your guides, Hans and Lou, and we will give you the latest in Stephen King news. But before we do so, you must prove yourself worthy. You must open the door and join us in the death room.
Yes, and the first news today is that Stephen King is not dead. And that might sound like a strange news, but in late January there were some rumors online that he had actually died. So, and I actually didn't hear these rumors. What caught my eye was that I think it was on his Facebook page, he added a little note that said, "We've added a new Q&A to the FAQ. Question, are you dead? Answer, nope."
Yeah, I have to admit, this whole thing blew by before I even heard about it. So, in fact, until you posted it on your site, I had missed all the whatever waves this had caused. But I don't think it was a lot of consternation about this. It seems like he nipped it in the bud pretty quickly. So I think that's part of the reason why it didn't really make, like, there was no big news items retracting this statement about King being dead or not.
Yeah, and I think it just it surfaced on one or two pages, and it didn't really take hold in the big news pages. So I think it didn't spread that way. So
yeah, which is good.
Yeah, it is.
And I'm glad King. It would be really cool if he actually tweeted and said, "I am, but I'm still here."
Yeah.
Anyhow. All right. So next item, we're back with the Broadway version of Misery, and Stephen King actually attended a showing, and he went backstage and talked to the stars, Laurie Metcalf and Bruce Willis. And, you know, I had mentioned, I think in a previous podcast, that I didn't really know who Laurie Metcalf was, but then once I saw her, I realized that she was on the Roseanne series, and she was Roseanne's sister for that series. So I knew her quite well, actually. So I could see her playing a good Annie, and Stephen King basically said that. There was also a video that went up later on, and it was kind of funny how Laurie Metcalf was just talking like a mile a minute, and Bruce Willis didn't say a word.
No.
He just smiled and chuckled a bit, but he didn't really say anything. King seems to have enjoyed the play, and he said that they both give good versions of the character, which seems to go in line with some feedback that you got from one of our viewers.
Exactly. Some time ago, we mentioned that we got a review from someone who saw a preview show of this, who didn't like it at all. And after that, a gentleman called Lance Gray contacted me and mentioned that he had seen it actually 3 weeks into the run of it. And he liked it a lot and thought that they did the parts well and the setting was great and everything. And the funny thing is that we misunderstood each other a little bit. So the next podcast after that, I didn't mention this because I was waiting for feedback from him, and he was waiting for me to say something on the, on the podcast. So then after that, we reconnected again, and for the podcast after that, I couldn't find his original message, so I had to make an announcement in the last podcast to ask for him. So he contacted me again and sent me this info. So now I'm doing this, Lance. So I hope you forgive me for my mistakes earlier. But anyway, he said he liked it as well, and afterwards he actually met both Laurie and Bruce, who was very kind and signed stuff for them, and a lot of fans really wanted to hear Bruce say his famous line from Die Hard, Yippee-ki-yay,
Yippee-ki-yay,
and so on. Yeah, and so on. So it seems like they got it together, and maybe the first review we read was from the preview before they had it all set in and gotten warm in their parts. It seems like it took off and was really good, and we saw some photos from it later from the setting and even from the show itself, and it looked really good. And they did a trailer for it where you saw the actors in action, and from that it also looked good. So maybe we were too harsh on it from the beginning.
Well, we can only relay what we've been hearing from other people, so it's good to get
exactly.
the broader the base of responses we get, the better picture we can get of it. So
yeah,
I mean, they're both good actors, and I would love to be able to see this play. So
yeah,
but
I wish they could. Yeah, I got some hope when they had actually filmed some of it to do this trailer that popped up online, but I don't know if they're gonna shut it all, so they're gonna release it in some form, and I don't know, but that would be great if they did.
Yeah, it would be cool if down the road Live Theater would do some sort of streaming or pay-to-play kind of option.
Yeah.
I can understand why they just don't want to release videos outright. Otherwise, people will just say, well, I can just wait for them to put it on video, and then I don't have to pay to go to the show. But if they charge something for it, a couple of bucks, $4 or $5, I'd be more than happy to stream it or be able to download a digital copy of it or something like that. But
yeah, definitely. And
I mean, that would be cool.
And it's never the same to just watch it on your TV at home as seeing it live. So
absolutely, yeah.
I don't think as long as they don't release it at the same time, I don't think it would be competing with each other. So yeah. But we were hoping that for Ghost Brothers as well, and that didn't happen. So I guess we'll see.
Yeah. Next item is Poor Cell still has no signal or carrier.
No.
It was supposed to premiere at a Scottish horror film festival, but they just posted a notice back on January 27th that due to circumstances beyond our control, we have had to withdraw Cell from the 6:30 p.m. slot on Friday, February 26th. If you were looking forward to see this in particular, we are sorry. There was absolutely nothing we could do about it, and believe us, we tried. So, yeah, what can you say? I mean, it's just
strange.
It's very strange, and unless there was a deal in the works that prohibited any screenings of it, but it's weird that they don't want to start building up some form of buzz or traction for this before if it ever does get released, because it's been on the shelf so long. The longer it sits there, the more our opinions of its chances of being any good are continuing to plummet. So it's too bad.
And I mean, the zombie buzz it's not as strong as it was like a year ago. And I think it's going a bit downhill now as well.
Yeah, a little oversaturated.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
The good thing about it is, though, that they released 2 new photos from it.
Yes. Yeah.
But what worries me about this is now we have seen these 2 new photos and we have seen 1 older photos. And on all 3 of those, there are 3 people just standing around. I mean,
and they're not going to give away the goods.
No, but they could at least give us some photo of something
blood?
else.
You want some blood?
Yeah, or something else than 3 people standing around. I mean, they have to do something else in the movie, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it could show them in a car or something. It's almost like they are all 3 the same photos, just in different places. So it's not that exciting photos. I mean, if they want to build excitement for the movie, maybe they should have released another photos.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I guess we'll see if this, but it's strange. It's very strange. I mean, it's definitely not making any money for anyone sitting on a shelf. So let's get it out there.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, and the next item is, I guess it's both good or bad depending on how you look at it.
Mm-hmm.
The revival or the revival, the book, is being turned into a movie by none other than Josh Boone, who we have heard a lot about before. The bad thing about this is that The Stand is being put on hold for revival.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess in the statement that was made is that they wanted to get The Stand more ready to be filmed, and in the meantime, Boone is doing revival. To me, it sounds a little bit, first Lizzie Story, then Stand, then revival. It's a little bit worrying that all these titles are announced, but then nothing happens with them. But I guess we'll see what happens. Personally, I would prefer The Stand over revival.
I think most people would, yeah.
Yeah.
Because especially since revival is such a downer ending to the story.
Yeah, well, I like those downer endings. Also, Samuel L. Jackson has been cast for a part in revival, and he would be playing, if this is true, we don't know if this is true or just a rumor so far, but he would play the Reverend Charles Jacobs. What do you think about that?
Yeah, it's just a rumor, and Samuel L. Jackson is just one of those actors that seems to show up almost in every picture. I mean, between him and Michael Caine, I think they have all the supporting roles. But this would be, and this is in a way a supporting role because this character keeps popping in and out of the main character's life. Interesting choice. Again, this is, if we wanted to, you could really wade in and make this a touchy subject because he's not the right, he's not the character that we know from the book. But and then we're going to get into that when we do our revisited of The Stand as well, because the actor that played Flag is also not the character that we had in mind. So I'm of mixed mind. I mean, the guy's a good actor, but I do have to say that I'm a little fatigued of Samuel L. Jackson and just in general because he's been in so many movies lately. So I think he would do a good job, but I don't know. I would like to see somebody else in this role, to be honest. And it doesn't particularly have to be of a particular ethnic makeup or anything like that. I would just like somebody that I'm not as a little tired of seeing, I guess is the best way to put it.
Yeah. I was thinking a little bit more like someone that looked more like, if you're familiar with The Simpsons, the Burns character. I was seeing more something like that in front of me when I read the book, and that's definitely not Samuel L. Jackson. So
yeah,
he's not the person I envisioned when I read the book.
Yeah,
but I think he could pull it off, definitely.
Yeah, I think he could too. But I think like I agree with what you're saying. I would just like something a little more creative if whoever gets cast this role, somebody that's going to make you go, whoa, I never saw that. Like somebody like maybe a Tom Hardy or and what's his name, Eddie Redmayne, or like a Ben Olsen, I believe, like some of these other actors that could really surprise you or say, wow, that's an interesting choice for that character. So Samuel L. Jackson is a good choice, but he's also, to me, he's a bit of a safe choice.
Yeah.
And I just would see too much of Nick Fury from the Avengers movies right now. And that's part of the problem I have with overexposure with this guy. So, but I also, like you, I'm a little concerned now that Josh Boone has put The Stand on the back burner. I understand maybe part of the problem here is that the option with Warner Brothers has come and gone. And I think Warner Brothers has really got its focus on wondering what is going to happen with their superhero franchise. Like they've sunk a lot of money into that Batman versus Superman movie. Yeah. And depending on who you talk to, the reactions to it so far are not where they were hoping for or expecting. So maybe they're worried that they're going to be taking a bath on this movie because they want to use that movie to launch their whole DC comic line with Justice League and all that. So unfortunately, they might be a little nervous right now. And because of that, basically that's put this project on hold. But every time that happens, like you said, it makes me nervous that the momentum that was there before is not going to be recovered, or new people, if Batman versus Superman bombs, everybody that's Warmers, a lot of people are going to lose their jobs, right? So then a whole new bunch of people are going to come in, and then you have to start all over again getting them interested in The Stand. And if they just lost a ton of money on this one movie, it might affect they might be more risk averse, because the Stand is risky to make as a movie series. But on the other hand, I kind of like the idea that Josh Boone would get his feet wet with a smaller Stephen King story. I would like to see how he can handle that, and then use that experience as a springboard to doing something but so much more epic like The Stand. So I'm mixed feelings about it, but generally I'm worried that The Stand might never come to fruition because of this.
Yeah, and I get the feeling that, and no matter what the reason is that the stand is put on hold, that when you are attached to movies and again they are getting pulled back or on hold or something, you have a hard time believing that revival will actually happen now as well, because the previous two have been pulled back. So
yeah,
I guess we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah. All right. But turning to something that we know is coming out for sure, and actually
Yes.
it's premiering tomorrow night on February 15th in the States. That is, of course, 11/22/63. And if you go to Han's site, you can see a pretty cool poster. It's a window pane that looks like a bullet hole through it, and you can see James Franco in his Clark Kent suit. He looks like a reporter with that hat on.
Yeah, Clark Kent.
Yeah, he's running. So with this, and then another cool thing that you posted was the title sequence for the series, which I thought was really cool, with like the laser beam trajectories of the shots from the rifle and stuff like that. So there's a lot of cool stuff up there. In general, the early reviews I've been hearing are pretty positive, and I guess we do have to be prepared to recognize or accept the fact that the adaptation of the series is not going to be exactly what we read in the book, but it still captures the core of the book, which is always the main thing. So I'm really looking forward to seeing this tomorrow night. I haven't seen it yet. I'm curious if you have any thoughts that you want to add about this, Hans.
Yeah, well, first I think that the laser beam you mentioned in the intro or opening titles are actually strings, red strings that tie things together.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, and I must say that I have seen this show, as you know by now.
Mm-hmm.
And when I turned on the first episode and I saw this intro, it really warmed my heart, because the intro is super nice, I think. And I felt very happy when I saw that, and I liked the rest as well. So, and I guess I can say that now because it's been posted on some places and on Stephen King's message board as well, that there are some changes compared to the book.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand why they have done them, and I think most of them are actually good.
Good.
So I think if you are looking for something that follow the book exactly, there are some things that will maybe disappoint you if you want it exactly as the book. But I think they have good reasons for doing the changes they do. So personally, I think they work. So.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, and anytime you have to adapt a book that's like, I don't know what it was, 800 pages or something into 8 hours, there has to be compression. And we will, of course, be reviewing this series, but not episode by episode. Our next podcast will probably be in 2 weeks. Actually, we're scheduled to do a guest appearance on another podcast.
Yeah.
Books versus movies, and we're going to talk about the comparison of the two. I'll be a bit of at a handicap because the series won't be done at that point, but Hans will have to.
No, I think we will only talk about the first 2 episodes, because the hosts of the other show won't have seen more than you have. So.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Yeah, so we were only talking about the first 2 episodes, and from that, Lou and I will review the rest, the other 6 episodes.
Right. Not
each week, but as.
I imagine that you'll put up a link for when they post their podcast, because we're guesting on their podcast. Yes. It won't be ours. So we won't have another podcast out probably for a month, I would think. Yeah. So, but don't worry, we will talk about this series, and you can hear it at a Books versus Movies podcast.
Yes, and we can also mention that happily this show has been sold all around the world, and we know some dates. That, as you mentioned, the US date is February 15th for the first episode. Australia will be following the February 16. Canada, February 17. New Zealand, February 23rd, and Germany, April 11. And other countries that it's been bought by Fox Networks. So if you have that one in your country, you will definitely see this one. And the countries that's been confirmed but has no date are the UK, Italy, Russia, Netherlands, Spain, Sweden, Bulgaria, Belgium, Croatia, Finland, Greece, Hungary, Norway, Poland, Portugal, Serbia, and Slovenia. So it will be moving around Europe as well this spring.
Awesome.
Yes.
But you would, in this digital age, I understand that there's rights issues in that, but really it doesn't make sense to have these staggered releases. They're just hurting themselves. They should really release it everywhere at the same time. But, you know, That's a business model constraint that content providers are still trying to work around. But, well, I'm just glad that everybody's going to get a chance to see it eventually, one way or the other.
Yeah.
All right, one more item, Hans. Take it away.
Yes.
It's a biggie.
Exactly. This is the Dark Tower movie. And as we've been reported earlier, there's been Idris Elba has been rumored, Matthew McConaughey has been rumored. And in a recently interview in Rolling Stones, King himself talked about this movie. And he said that he didn't really know, but he said that to him it was more likely that it would happen than that it wouldn't. And the same goes for Idris Elba and Matthew McConaughey. He thought that it was a bigger chance that they would be in the movie than that they wouldn't be in the movie. So straight from King, probably this movie will happen, and it will star Idris Elba as Roland and Matthew McConaughey as Flag, as it looks now. Things can happen in Hollywood, we know that. But if anyone would know, it would be Stephen King. So,
basically, Go ahead.
He didn't confirm this, but he said that it was more likely to happen than not. So I guess that is as close to a confirmation that he can give until it's publicly announced.
Right, but and I'm sorry I broke you up there twice, but the main thing is that we now know that there was not just smoke, there was actually some fire to those rumors. So that's good. And we've, of course, talked about this ad nauseum, so we're not going to go back over this ground again. But
what I think we should talk about is, what do you think about Matthew McConaughey as Flag? We haven't spoken much about that.
I think that's inspired. And you see, like I was thinking when we were talking about Revival, I would like to see McConaughey play the priest in that, but if he's playing Flag in this series, you don't want him playing. Well, I guess he could play the priest in Revival too. That would, like, to me, that's the kind of casting I would like to see. I mean, we've already had Jamie Sheridan play Flag, and he's also a white guy, so it obviously can work. What about you? What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's interesting to see someone who at least mostly plays the good guy.
Yeah.
Play the bad guy.
Yeah.
And if done right, it could be very effectful, because you're not used to see this actor playing a bad guy. So I think that could be very effectful.
Yeah.
I think also that he might look too kind. When I'm envisioning Flag, I see someone that looks not very evil, because he is a little secretive, but something more evil over him than I see in McConaughey. That could be handled with some makeup or stuff like that, maybe. But I think it could work. But I think I was expecting someone who look a little bit more evil.
That's why I like the choice, because he does look friendly, but if he's able to convey that underneath the surface there's really something twisted about him, I think that makes for, it's kind of like the first time you see Hannibal in the Silence of the Lambs, because they build up all this guy's a cannibal and he kills all these people, so you're expecting to see like a raving lunatic in a straitjacket, and then when you see the guy, he's just like an English butler. which makes it even creepier, right? So if McConaughey can pull something off like that, I think that would be awesome. And I still go back to my idea that I would love to see the movie open with Idris Elba starting off as Randall Flagg, and then when he sees Roland come back and sees that it's Idris Elba, and he would say, "Oh, that's how it's going to be this time, eh?" And then he snaps his fingers and turns into Matthew McConaughey. I think that would be awesome. It's kind of like the beginning of Star Trek 2 with Spock, when Kirk said to Spock, says, "Aren't you dead?"
Yeah.
Because people were always complaining ahead of time before the movie. The rumor got out that Spock was going to die in that movie, right? So they have addressed it. And the same thing that on Her Majesty's Secret Service, when George Lazenby played James Bond and the girl beat him up or something like that, or turned him down, he says, that never happens to the other guys. Like, you just got to embrace it and have some fun with it, and hope once you break the ice, the audience will go along with it. But so that's a lot of interesting news there. But he also said some interesting stuff about Jericho Hill.
Yeah, exactly. He says that he will never be done with the Dark Tower, and I believe him. I think that even though we have a start, we have an ending to the story, we will still get some stories that happens in between, like we did with Wind Through the Keyhole. And one of the things they want to write about is Jericho Hill events. Yeah. And also he sees like all the first books were first drafts, so you want to go back and redo them. So but I think that might be stretching it a little bit, depending on how much he changes. But I think it would. I think that investing that much work in just touching them a little bit, tuning them up a little bit, it would be a lot of work for 7 books to do all that and just have them change a little bit. So if I could choose, I would rather see him writing new books than tuning up the Dark Tower books over again.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. Sometimes it's the flaws in a work actually make you love it more. Like if it's like with a person, right? You love them. They have certain things that drive you crazy, but you still love them in spite of that. So I think it's more of a wish list item for him than something that he'll actually do. But I don't know. The guy surprised us before, but you, I would love to see the whole thing about Jericho Hill, because we've never seen or heard directly what happened to the original quartet, except through this kind of like, well, there was this battle. But I'd like to actually see that. We've never seen Roland with his entire previous quartet. It's been one character or the other, but never the whole group. So
I think he addressed it somewhat in the comics.
Well,
I think I would prefer to have it as a book.
Yeah. And especially if he doesn't pick up the horn of Eld, that would make the ending resonate more too. But because he does it here, doesn't mean they would include it in the miniseries, but it would be a nice Easter egg for later on. The other interesting item about this piece is that he says he's in between books, which sounds like, what? You can't be in between books. Get back to work. He's always
writing books.
That's right. So I don't know if he's being coy this year, because the only thing we've got announced is End of Watch coming out in June. But the streak of 2 books a year could potentially be broken this year. But I'm crossing my fingers that he's being coy, and then we're going to hear an announcement about something coming out in November still.
Yeah, and I think it's been posted on his message board that he's been working on stuff previous. So I think there's a book lying around just waiting to be published.
A trunk novel?
Sorry?
Another trunk novel?
Yeah, or something he's written that is just have to finish up or something like that. Or maybe it's even finished. Yeah. I don't think he's all tapped out and waiting. I just can't see it. I think he has more lying around.
I hope so. I'd like to see his streak keep going, at least for another year or 2.
Yeah.
All right.
Definitely.
So that is the news.
Yes.
Bum, 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 bum. All right.
This is great. What's our job? We'd like drive around and pick up stiffs or what?
It's time for reviews from the night shift.
So, The Stand as a miniseries. This one was done for TV and aired in 4 episodes back in 1994.
Take that, you people that say The Stand can't be done in 4 movies.
Yeah, and actually these are like 4 movies, because each episode is like 1.5 hour long.
Yep.
So the whole thing is almost 6 hours. And that's not counting the commercials, because I think each episode was 2 hours when they aired on TV, because they had put in all these commercials.
Yeah.
But it's like 6 hours, and they take their time to develop the characters and everything, and I think this is a good adaptation. It definitely is. When you see it like now, what is it, 22 years?
Yep.
After it's done.
Hard to believe.
Yeah, exactly. And I remember this one when it aired in Sweden on a paper channel we had to pay for watching, and I didn't have that channel, but a co-worker of my mother's had it. So I had to convince my mother to convince her co-workers to tape it for me.
Well,
but she did. She did. So she did.
It
so I get it. Yeah. So, and I remember when I saw it, I loved it when I saw it back then.
Sure.
And when we rewatched it now for this episode, I still liked it. There were some stuff that felt very old.
Sure.
There was some stuff in it that felt very strange, I think. I don't know. We can go into those later on.
Sure.
But I think it's built in a good way. You move the story in segment. You get to know the stories. They travel. you have the battle on the ending and stuff like that. So I think it's well constructed and had a good story. And it's really, its only problem is that it's hasn't aged as good as you might have wished. And some of the characters might have been differently cast if it were done today, I think.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I think the hairstyle that Flag has, I think it's called mallet or something in English.
Mullet.
Yeah, mullet. Here in Sweden it's called hockeyfrilla. And that's translated to, because earlier the hockey players from like Czechoslovakia and stuff like that had very long hair in the back.
Right.
So it's translated to hockey hairdo or something like that. And I think it looks kind of geeky on him. So I guess it could have been done a bit different. But I guess in mid 90s that was cool by then, that standard. But overall, I actually enjoyed it, and I think I'm happy that they took the time and did it right.
Yes,
it's the way that say Under the Dome should have been done. 4 long episodes would have been so much better.
Yep.
What are your thoughts about it?
Yeah, I haven't watched this in, I cannot honestly remember how long, but watching it again, it was a very curious thing because we've become so used to CGI being used in the bulk of special effects shots and whatnot. And while there's definitely a couple of shots where CGI would have been really welcome, overall, because it was mostly practical effects, there's a really organic, raw kind of feeling to it. It's almost like an indie picture in some ways that I actually really liked. It felt more real because of that. But the problem is where they really needed the CGI, it's really apparent that they needed it, and it kind of falls apart, especially like in the climax. But overall, there's certain performances that really bothered me before, like especially Molly Ringwald as Franny Goldsmith. She didn't bother me nearly as much this time. I was actually more okay with her than I have ever been. And overall, I really did like a lot of the casting here. And I don't really think it's a miscasting, but I just think it's the way the character was handled was the Harold Lauder character. Because in the book, he starts out like this really geeky, nerdy, clumsy guy. But by the time we get to, his final chapters, he's become quite the, well, I don't want to say a stud, but he's really been able to put on a different persona to his character that everybody treats him like, like he's a big gun kind of guy. And that never comes across in the miniseries. He starts out as a nerd and his complexion clears up, but that's basically it. He's still walking around with the glasses and the greased back down hair. So that's kind of disappointing because he's such an important character in the story and he triggers such strong actions that I really wanted that character to have a better arc than what was captured in the miniseries. And you watch this and you see all the other adaptations Mick Garris has done, and it's like it's two different people. From this one, like he just really does a lot of good things, and really captured the heart of the book and does some really good shots. Like the shot of Harold when he hits the railing and goes flying over, like that's a really good shot. Like it's well staged. And some of the shots of the characters walking with the mountains in the background, some really great shots. And just some of the, his camera moves and whatnot. It's when you look at this and compare it to all the other things that he's done for King adaptations, it's really hard to reconcile where he went after this. And you always feel kind of bad because he seems like a super nice guy. But yeah, whatever was happening, and maybe this is something that we should really be excited about, is you could say, well, if a director like Mick Garris, who's other works aren't, looked on as well as this one. If he could do such a really good job with this property in today's world, with so many great directors out there looking to adapt these things, that whoever gets to adapt this story, they can probably really do an amazing job with it. And the one sequence that really, really disappointed me is the Lincoln Tunnel sequence. That didn't go on nearly long enough, and it wasn't nearly scary enough. So that's kind of my quick impressions. There's lots of things that we could talk about, but I don't know if we just want to sort of talk about the actors and then the story, or however you want to do it. But whatever interests you, I'm quite willing to talk about, and we'll try to weave in the Stephen King Revisited columns that were done, and they're really good ones for this one because we have Vincent, as usual, does a great context of King's struggles to get this novel written, and then Richard Chizmar for Cemetery Dance talks about it and sort of segues into, because he's a friend of Josh Boone, who we talked about at the top of the episode, who's attached to direct the Stand, and he has a great column too. So we'll try to weave that all in. But what would you like to talk about first, Hans?
Well, we could start about the Revisited, because I think there's some things that are interesting to talk about there.
Okay.
For one thing is that when Josh Boone wrote this or his essay there, he ends with saying that he hasn't read the revival yet, and now he's slated to direct it. So that's interesting.
I guess he really liked it.
Yeah, he must have. And Rich mentioned also that that Josh has turned in a script that is rumored to be excellent, and he indicates that he might have read it and liked it. And he mentioned the casting for the Stand will be surprising. So that's make me wonder, has there been casting done?
Yeah.
And he mentioned that between the characters he would like to see more about is either Stu Redman or Franny Goldsmith, and he has on good authority that one day we will learn more about them. So I guess that has to come from King himself, that he has an interest in visiting these characters again. So it's some very interesting statement he makes in that article he's published.
Yeah, unfortunately, because the option has lapsed with Warner Brother, whatever casting they might have had in place has probably gone up in smoke, and they'll have to start over again as well. So we have to bear that in mind too.
Yeah, and I wish that they would, when stuff like that happen, I wish they would publish who they had in mind or who was contacted. It would be so interesting to see how they thought about it.
Yeah, I think they're
mostly it just disappears.
Yeah, I think they're not allowed to do that because the actors are obviously and the production companies are don't want to, put out alerts to other movie companies, whatnot. Say, oh, if we want to get this guy, we're going to have to, up our bid against what they're offering that person right now. So, so there's like a confidentiality. You want to work under the covers as much as possible, because we saw what happened with Sony when they had those email leaks, how it really blew up in their faces. But there's some interesting stuff in that in Richard's column, and all three actually. And when the most heartening thing, because I was really high on Josh Boone when he did that podcast interview with Kevin Smith, is if you look at all the books he's read from Stephen King, like there's, he's hit all the big ones. So this guy knows or is very familiar with Stephen King. But like you, I'd love to see his treatment of the Stand script to see what he has in mind. So
one day maybe.
Stuff,
but,
maybe.
Yeah. But back to this one. The things I had some problems with was, for one, the military. I think it was quite exaggerated. And one thing that I reacted to especially was that when I think it was if it was the brother or something to one of the guys at the gas station, the sheriff that came, and when he calls back to the headquarters, he talks to the receptionist, and afterwards we see these 3 military guys standing there with guns, and watching this one lady, and it felt a little exaggerated, and it just felt phony, I think. The way they invaded the community, and I remember one military car came in through the town, and this guy was hanging out the window with a machine gun, like he was going into battle, and I mean, it felt a little bit exaggerated. I think.
It's I think sometimes they did exaggerate it just to make a shortcut to tell people, this is serious stuff going on here.
Yeah.
I think what I had one of the dated aspects of the more dated aspects of this miniseries was some of the dialogue was really on the nose, and part of the problem, I guess, with like a large cast like this, you constantly have to remind people who's who. So, but it just doesn't sound natural when people keep seeing people's names all the time. People don't talk like that when they're talking to somebody. They don't say, "Well, Stu Redman, I think you should do this." You just say, "You should do this." Like that's how people talk. So, but I understand. But it was a little awkward. But I think people, audiences are more sophisticated nowadays, so that probably would be done a lot better. I have to say, this has got one of the best openings to a Stephen King adaptation. I mean, some of the stuff above ground is not quite as slick, but the whole "Don't Fear the Reaper" and the camera pans through the underground base, that is just really fantastic. And you can tell how it's dated when the camera is pulling in to the guardhouse and it goes to the TV camera to show the underground base. Nowadays with CGI, that transition from that camera to the camera that's actually in the base would be basically seamless. It would go right through the screen of the TV when you wouldn't even notice it, right? And here you can see it's kind of a slightly different angle shot. But that's a technical limitation in that. And but that opening sequence with all those dead people down on the underground base, it's one of my favorite openings to a Stephen King movie. Period. I just think it's really well done, and the music is great. And in general, the music for the whole movie, I think it's like Ry Cooder guitar stuff. It really works quite well.
Yeah, I agree. I love that song, "Don't Fear the Reapers." So it's perfect. I agree.
Yeah.
Another thing that and now I have to confess that I haven't read the book in a really long time, so maybe I'm missing something here. But when the three of them leave for Las Vegas, Stu, Larry, and Glenn, exactly. I didn't really understand why they did that, because they arrived, they got captured, and the trash can man came with a bomb, and I didn't really get why they were going there, and I guess it's in the book it might be different, because I can't remember exactly how it was in the book.
Yeah, well, Glenn Bateman goes into it more. He went into it a little detail about the fact that they're walking and they're basically cleansing and purging themselves. Yeah. But this is basically God's sending them to make these people aware that they're following the wrong guy, and that they're sort of like, you could say, missionaries going into a hostile territory. But they're basically are there to prove that the trash can, or not the trash can man, but that Randall Flagg is a fraud, and that they're following the wrong person. And then of course, God makes an example of Las Vegas. So it's a religious, it's an aspect of the book that I don't know how that's going to translate with modern audiences, like the religious aspects of this. But you have to remember that this is like these people have all gone through a horrific cataclysm, And when it's kind of like, in the middle of the day, you say you don't believe in monsters, but when you're by yourself in the middle of the night and it's kind of scary or something like that, you can believe in things like that more. And I think under these circumstances, this whole religious aspect of the film actually makes kind of a sense. Like people would turn back to these things because they're scared, and so the power of those of that kind of themes, I think makes sense. But
Yeah.
I don't know. We've become so cynical nowadays. I don't know how well that will translate. I mean, like even when Darabont made The Mist, and we had the one lady that was like the religious fanatic. The actors played it well, but the problem is it's sort of become a cliche now. Even though oddly when King wrote it, it wasn't originally, but now it's become like the religious fanatic is always evil and whatnot. So.
Yeah, but
basically, go ahead.
Yeah, it felt a little bit
contrived.
Wasted. Yeah, wasted because you sent them there to tell them that you are following the wrong guy, and when they learned that, they were dead.
Well, some people got it. Well, maybe I don't know.
I think most of them must have died.
They should have, yeah.
But blown an atomic bomb in the middle of them. So.
I guess that's why. Stu was behind to see it, right? So it just takes one person to say what happened.
Well, I guess so, but I felt that it felt very unnecessary to send them there by God, because at first I thought, oh, they were there so that everyone would be together when the bomb went off, because they were at the center of the street there because they want to see them die. So, but I mean, after all, it was an atomic bomb, so everyone would have died anyway if they were near Las Vegas. So,
well, the other thing that I didn't mention that I think it plays a part to this is that like with Mother Abigail, when she went out into the wilderness for a while, I think the reason that these guys were sent there is because they are paying the penance or the price of their pride. And the fact that they were trying to basically recreate everything that caused this problem in the first place, and that they hadn't learned their lesson. So that's another part of it. And like it's a harsh lesson. But I think the pride issue, the whole pride theme, is the other reason why he sent them there. So.
Yeah, I guess, and I think it's more explained in the book.
Yeah.
Here in the movie, it got lost somehow, I think, in the translation.
Yeah.
Why they went there. At least on me it did.
Okay. I generally liked and as you mentioned off the top, I do like the structure of the miniseries. They did a really good job of establishing a lot of these characters, even though there was, they obviously compressed a lot of things. And it's amazing, like you, I haven't read the book in a while, but I really knew who these characters were, even though I haven't read the book for a while. As soon as they said their name, I said, okay, that's the person this is his story arc and that. So all of that came back to me really quickly. And, there's some really strong actors in here. I thought Gary Sinise was excellent as Stu Redman. It was great to see Ray Walston, who I grew up with, My Favorite Martian. So he played Glenn Bateman. And Rob Lowe, at the time I thought, wow, that's a really weird pick to play Nick Andros. But he does a really good job. It's just so sad when you see him in the Salem's Lot remake. Because actually he's pretty good here. Miguel Ferrer, who of course later on did Night Flyer, he's really good. One of the standouts for me is Matt Fuhrer as the trash can man. I thought he was just fantastic.
I think he was best in the entire series, actually.
Yeah, I think he's one of my favorite characters. And actually, like Laura San Giacomo, I liked her, but I just hated her hair. It was like it was obviously a wig, but it just was really distracting. But I mean, this is a really strong cast when you look back on it now. At the time, and there's moments where and the guy that played Tom Cullen, who I can't remember his name, but he was like on the Coach sitcom. He played somebody there. Bill Fagerbakke. Fagerbakke. Yeah, I thought he did an excellent job as well. And there was a couple of times I hadn't realized there was a couple of cameos in here. One was distracting, and that was the prophet guy. Do you recognize that guy, the big, tall, black guy?
No, I didn't.
Oh, okay. That's Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, basketball player.
Okay.
So he was distracting, but then there was like a couple of directors. Sam Raimi was in there, and John Landis.
Yeah.
Mick Garris was in a couple of scenes himself.
Yes.
His wife played Susan Stern.
I think his wife is in every of his movies.
I think so, yeah, because she was in the Shining miniseries too. I thought she did a pretty good job.
Yeah.
But
Stephen King was in there.
Yeah, and he was okay.
Yeah.
Ozzie Davis, is the judge.
Tom Holland.
Tom Holland. Who did he play?
Carl Hughes.
Carl Huff.
Huff.
Yeah. Anything else? And there were some guys like, one guy was played the father in Elf. Another guy, I've seen him in other stuff.
I think there were a lot of people you recognized there who's been having these small parts in a lot of stuff that you have seen them and you recognize them, but you can't really put the finger on where you've seen them. So we can't forget Kathy Bates was in there.
Yes, and Ed Harris. Yeah. He was kind of over the top, but I think his part demanded that. So he's got that intensity, right? So he kind of sells it. But and
I think when you mention it, that a lot of the acting was a little bit over the top, I think. Mm-hmm. But I think that was just the way it was done.
Yeah.
In that time frame.
Yes.
So I don't think that anyone thought that it was over the top back then.
No.
But you look at it 20 years later, it feels that they are, as you say, they are saying each other's names and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. They are over exaggerating the acting as well.
Yeah, definitely. It's a style of that time period. It's kind of like when you watch the original Star Trek, how it's very hammy too at times, but that's just the way they acted back then. I think the most interesting casting choice that I struggle with, because I do think he gives a good performance, but I do think it's Jamie Sheridan as Randall Flagg. I'm not, and it's not just the hair, and maybe it's because some of the transformation special effects were kind of cheesy, but
lame.
Okay, you could say that too. But he did have a swagger about him that I did like. But I think one aspect from the book that was lost is when he started to lose control of the situations, and these people would start to get slipped through his fingers and whatnot. I don't think I didn't get the feeling that they showed that loss of power properly. But I do like the scenes where he would transform back from the crow and he would still have like a feather or two in his hair.
Yeah.
I thought that was clever. And the first time they show him, like when that's a crow sitting on the top of the telephone pole. That was pretty cool.
And I think he was the walking dude with the jeans and the cowboy boots and the jeans jacket. So I think that worked. But as you say, the transformations was really outdated, and I think the way he looked, it just looked strange. It wasn't really scary. It just looked like I don't know, a bull or something that had been run over. And so it looked very strange. But
and another thing that's dated too, and King has come under criticism, is just how he uses black characters to be like magical, magical beings and that. But I have to say that I thought Ruby Dee as Mother Abigail Fremantle did a good job. I mean, for the way the character was written. And sometimes, it might be a cliche, but it's a cliche for a reason because it works. And I thought her performance overall was pretty good in this.
Yeah, I think so as well. And I think that they maybe they should have toned down the supernatural things a little bit to make it more realistic.
Yeah, well, you got to kind of sell that. But again, part of the problem there is some of the practical effects just don't work, and you're better off leaving some of that stuff to the viewer's imagination.
And if you look, it's totally different. But if you compare it to like say The Walking Dead,
Right.
and if you would take The Walking Dead and remove all the zombies and just look at how the world there looks when it's going to hell, it looks a lot more cleaner here in the Stand, and it would have I would have liked it to be a little bit more dirty, a little bit more. I don't know the exact what it's called, but more falling apart.
Yeah,
it looks
more
too
decrepit.
clean here. I think. Yeah, it looks too clean here.
Yeah.
And I guess that's also because it's 20 years old.
Yeah, and that's a budget restriction because
exactly. So I think if they were do it today, modern technique, and I think it would be a lot more realistic.
Yeah, I had a curious reaction too with the Hemingway home set. I mean, it looked obviously like it was done inside a studio, but it also, again, that's because it felt organic and raw. It had this kind of retro charm to it. It almost made me felt like they were on the set of Wizard of Oz, like the old 1939 movie. Every time they went back to that house, I felt like Dorothy would just come out of the front door or something like that. It had that feel to it. So it was kind of it was dated, but it didn't bother me. I actually found it kind of charming. And this is the thing, like, you and me, we grew up with the book and we've watched this miniseries when it premiered. It's kind of like with John Carpenter's The Thing. When I watched that movie scared the crap out of me. When my son watched it, he thought it was hilarious because he said the special effects were so lame. But I still think it's, and I can't, even though I can see that, because I guess I'm stuck with these rose-colored glasses because I grew up with it. I can't divorce myself from that mindset. And I know if I showed the series to my son, he would probably fall asleep. But I really enjoyed it. I mean, I was surprised. It's dated, but there's a certain charm about it, and a lot of things work properly. The structure, the music, that opening scene just really hooks you. But then there's little things like, when the car crashes into the gas pumps and that, then it kind of takes you out of it because it just looks kind of lame. But and the lack of cell phones and computers and all that kind of stuff, that really something that you have to kind of wrap your head around too. But I mean, once the stuff goes down, cell phones wouldn't work anymore anyhow. But it's just like not seeing computers and stuff like that. It was kind of
and I mean, you have to look at it as it was done 20 years ago, so it's not strange that it feels outdated because it was done in that time frame, and I think I still think it's a good adaptation because they feel true to the book.
Yes,
and then that the fashion and the computers and stuff has changed. That you can't calculate on that in advance. So I think you have to forgive that when you watch it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. But it would be interesting to hear if there are people listening to us that hasn't seen this before and watch it for the first time. It would be very, very interesting to hear what you think about it. If it, as you say, if you, like your sons, fall asleep to it, or if you think it's pretty good anyway.
Yeah.
It would be interesting to hear from you.
Yeah. One thing I have to say that I never really bought, but I think it did kind of work better for me this time, was the special effects of the hand grabbing the bomb at the end. That actually didn't bother me as much, but it was the actual, like, when he first threw the fireball at that one guy that was trying to stand up to him. That looked fake. But then when the hand actually kind of formed and wrapped itself around the bomb, they showed a couple of close-up shots, and you could tell it was just like cardboard tubes stuck inside it. And I thought, oh, you should have just kept long shots on that because that looks so fake. That bomb was just terrible.
Yeah. Yeah.
But Matt Frewer with that makeup, like his face, his skin was all melting and all that. He was
Yeah,
so
that
he was so
yeah,
good. Oh,
that was great.
yeah,
Yeah,
he was so good in this.
he was definitely the best character and actor in this one, I think.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Well, he had the most fun part to play, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
He was just straight crazy from the beginning, so.
Yeah.
But he just did everything bumpity bump, and then when he gets the nuclear missile, it goes bumpity bump. That was just so
Yep.
awesome. Yeah, I really, if they do a remake, I think they could still cast him to play the part again. But
Yeah, that would be fun.
yeah. So.
What did you think about Larry Underwood's hit, "Baby, Can You Dig Your Man"?
Well, that's the problem. Like anytime you have a fictional musician or a music group or something like that, the song it's very rare that the song is actually something that you think would be good or catchy.
Yeah.
I mean, like you get like, and it's not really the same thing, but like you show like a Greatest American Hero. Believe it or not, I'm floating on air. Like I can fly. Like that was a hit on its own, and without that, like if they had done like a version of "Baby, Can You Dig Your Man" and released it to play on actual radio stations and that, then I think it works. But when it's a fictional song that you don't know, because music is so, like when you hear a song that it just it grabs you emotionally because you've got all these memories of it, right?
Yeah.
But when it's something like this, unless it's something really catchy, it just sounded like overproduced elevator music to me. So it didn't. Yeah, and it's such a big part of the book, right? Because
Yeah. I wonder if King himself wrote those lines.
I'm sure he
think
did. Oh, I'm sure he
Yeah.
did. For sure.
Well,
So what else can we talk about here? I mean, I guess I'll just circle back to what we were talking. Like some people are saying if they do redo The Stand, how can they make 4 movies? And here we have this miniseries with 4 episodes, about 90 minutes each. And, there's stuff that they left out, but in general, they caught all the high points. And I appreciate that. I guess the other thing that dates this is the pace is slow. And I don't know if you can do that in a modern adaptation. I guess you'd have to show, because they didn't show a lot of the actual breakdown. You got glimpses of it here and there, but like New York City was basically laid to waste when we pick up Larry Underwood's story again. Yeah. So I think in the new version, it would probably concentrate a little bit more on that stuff, but for me, that stuff has been done like so many times that what I would like to see them do is expand that tunnel sequence. Like that should be as scary as heck. Which it wasn't.
Yeah, and I think what might be a problem with doing 4 or 3 movies of it is that this was done for TV, and you could sit at home. You could invest time in watching it, and if you didn't like it, you could turn off, and you didn't have to pay for it. It was on regular TV. I think the problem with doing 4 movies is that if they start doing 1 movie and it doesn't go well, they might not continue, and people might miss out, and you would have to pay for it. And I think so I think more that it might be harder to get people to invest time and money to go to the theater and see 4 movies that's released, like maybe if it's something like Lord of the Rings once a year, instead of like here you have 4 episodes that's released. I think they were released like in a week's time or something like that. So I think it's more the format of how it was released that might be a problem than actually filling the time with stuff.
On the plus side, post-apocalyptic movies are really big right now. So it definitely has that going for it. The strategy I would see with the movies is they would film the first one, and once they see the box office returns, like on opening weekend, if it does what they think it's going to do, or it hits the numbers that they were hoping for, then you would basically film the next 3 all at the same time, cut down your costs, and that way you can release one every year. Which, like, I agree with you. Once they get the first one out, they basically have to release the next installment the following year. Like, they can't take 3 years off between installments. You need to keep that momentum going, and people will remember the movie, and that would work. But if it's like 2 or 3 years between each movie, then that would be an issue.
Yeah, but I think I get impatient when I have to wait like a year to the next movie.
Well,
as they do with many. So I would prefer to have it as a TV show where I can see it and finish it in like a week or maybe 4 weeks if they do it once a week. So I would definitely see it either way.
Mm-hmm.
Not depending on how it's released, but I can see how a lot of people would prefer to have it. They know it's all done. They know it's going to be released in a pretty short time period instead of having one and maybe the others. And if the others are done, they won't know how it ends, like in 4 years. Yeah. It's a lot of time to invest in stuff like that, and so I can definitely see a worry there in the way it's released.
Yeah, but I think out of all the properties that they're trying to adapt, I think The Stand has got the best commercial possibilities because of its nature. Whereas the Dark Tower, I think, is going to be a harder sell. But I know studios are looking for franchises right now, and they want that that next Harry Potter 7 movie thing, or the Hunger Games, or whatever. But we'll have to see. Right now, because of where Josh Boone is with the revival, this has been pushed back at least two years, if not more. Yeah. For probably more like 4.
I don't think we'll see, if it's done, I don't think we will see the first movie out until maybe 2018.
Yeah, if we're lucky.
Yeah, I think that's the earliest if it's done.
Yeah, and now for myself, now that I'm almost pushing 60, when you get these kind of delays, you're kind of going, "Come on, guys, I want to see this before I'm not around anymore." That's what I like with the Dark Tower, and that I don't know if I'll ever get to see the whole thing. Probably not, but well, which is why like you, the idea of a miniseries is more attractive, because it would get all out in the same year, and then
and I mean today as well they can do earlier, like in 20 years ago, a TV series were always a kind of lamer version of a TV movie. Everything looked cheaper. Every effect was not as good as in a movie. But I mean today the TV show can often be maybe even better, or at least as good as a movie. Yeah, so you don't have that problem anymore.
Yeah, the gap between the two is definitely getting narrower. Yeah.
Yeah. So why not go for a TV show and have it done?
Yeah.
Like 11, 22, 63. Yep. You'll have it in 8 weeks, and it's all there.
Yeah. Yeah. I can see that. I mean, the only thing is with the TV show, like the gap is definitely smaller, but the scale will be still not movie quality from a technical perspective. But
and I mean you have shows like Game of Thrones today. I mean if they got the same budget and same good people that do the effects there, give them the stand, then I'm sure they could do a good job with it.
Yeah, the more you talk about that, the more I agree with it. I think TV is a better format, especially, well, it's not necessarily TV as we traditionally think of it, but any sort of media streaming service, Hulu, Netflix, whatever, I think that's the better ideal platform for these kinds of works, because they are so long. And the fact that, it's not the same amount of censorship now that it was back then as well. So you can be a little more adult and graphic with the horror and the gore and things like that. So yeah.
And I think the only problem with if they do a TV series of it is that they might continue too long, like they did with Under the Dome.
Yeah, or The Walking
So
Dead.
yeah.
just a shot, just taking
Yep.
a little shot at you.
Yep. So I think that might be a problem. But if they do, like Hulu has, as far as I know, no plans on doing a season 2 of 11/22/63. It's a contained 8-part series, and they're done with it. So if they do it like that, I'm all for a TV series more than several movies, actually.
Yeah, yeah. And you just have to wonder if they will maybe touch upon some of the things that were cut out of the original edition of The Stand. Though I don't think it's that's material is really needed, but it would be interesting just, if they're doing an alternative adaptation of it, if they would include some of that material as well. But
Yeah, and if they feel they need more material, they have a lot to go with there as well.
yeah, for sure. And it could have a lot of fun with it. You could maybe drum up interest with it, because there's even like the miniseries did. There, you can get so many cameos because there's so many characters that come in and have like a scene or two, and then they're done, right? So
yeah,
that would be kind of cool. Yeah. So this book is arguably, well, I think according to the polls that you've run, this is like the runaway all-time favorite book of a lot of Stephen King fans. It gets more than double the votes of it, right? I think.
Yeah, I think it did. It's definitely number one.
Yeah, and while I appreciate because of the scale and how he handles so many characters and makes so many characters come to life, it's not my favorite book of his. I actually like something smaller, like The Dead Zone or something like that. I just really appreciate the cleverness of that, and the you're much more into that one character. But this is an amazing book for him to create so many characters that I can instantly call them up in my mind and who they are, and that's just amazing.
Yeah.
He just it's his showcase piece of work for creating so many memorable characters, and it also kind of highlights the fact that he writes endings that a lot of people don't think live up to the initial promise. But I don't know. It worked for me, and I just really liked just listening to the soundtrack from this movie for a lot that Rycooder guitar, sliding guitar, bluesy stuff just worked really good for me. So
yeah, I think it's great. So, do you recommend this to other King fans out there?
Absolutely. It's probably, I'm trying to think now, is this the number one Stephen King adaptation? Like, if we're not talking movies, but TV shows, miniseries, I would say it probably, yeah, it's got to be the number one TV adaptation. But I'm trying to think of the other ones, and I can't really remember too many of them now. I'm drawing a blank. What else did we have?
Have
Under the Dome, Haven. Oh, The Dead Zone was good for the first 4 seasons.
Yeah.
Different format. How many other miniseries did they do? I can't.
Well, if you're counting those were just a few episodes, you have Salem's Lot.
Salem's Lot. Yes.
Golden Years.
Yeah.
It. Tommyknockers. Langoliers.
Yeah.
The Shining.
Yeah.
So Storm of the Century.
Oh, Storm of the Century is really good.
Yeah. Rose Red.
Yeah, I wasn't a big fan of that one.
Yeah.
So
Kingdom Hospital.
Yeah, Kingdom Hospital was okay.
Yeah.
Parts of it were good. Other parts I didn't like too much. So for me, it would be a toss-up between The Stand. Shoot, you mentioned the other ones again. Now I can't remember.
Golden Years, It, Salem's Lot.
Salem's Lot, and I think there was one more.
Rose Red.
No.
Storm of the Century.
Storm of the Century. Those
Shining.
are the 3. Yeah, those 3.
Yeah.
Yeah. Storm of the Century, The Stand, and Salem's Lot. And I think this Storm of the Century has the advantage of being created initially for TV. So
yeah,
that one you go into with no expectations, and I generally like that one. Salem's Lot, of course, holds a special place in my heart. Especially like the window tapping scene. Like, I don't think I'll ever get that out of my system. And just the way they did that special effects. But really on the scale of everything that's done, I think you have to give it to The Stand. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I have to put 11/22/63 up there as well.
Well, that's not fair. I haven't seen that yet. I'm hoping for, but that's good to hear, though.
Yeah. Yep. Well, I won't say too much, but I like it.
Good.
Yep. We'll be talking more about that in upcoming episodes, and the first episode is out tomorrow. So
yay! Can't
will
wait.
you see it? Do you have Hulu?
Yes.
Good.
I have my ways. Let's put it that way. Yeah. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing it. And tomorrow's Family Day here in Canada, which means we have a day off tomorrow, a long weekend. So, but I think we might be going to see Deadpool, so we'll have to see.
Yeah. Put the family in front of 11/22/63 then.
Yeah. I don't know if they'll watch it, but we'll give it a shot. See what happens.
Yeah.
Okay. You got anything else you want to add? Anything about the Stephen King Revisited stuff? Bev gives some great historical context there again, and I think Richard and Josh both do provide some very interesting insights as to where the at the time potential Stand adaptation was going to be. So we'll put links up on the show notes for this. But I definitely recommend that you check them out. And I was pleasantly surprised by my revisit of this. Maybe it just caught me in a good mood, but when a show has a really strong opening that really hooks you, and The Stand definitely does. That really works. That really carries a long way for me. So.
Yep. Yeah, and I think we want to hear what you say about them. What you think about this as well. Yep. So give us a comment to it, especially if you haven't seen it before and see it for the first time. On our recommendation.
Yeah, we have old eyes. We need some fresh eyes perspectives.
Yes, definitely.
My eyes are older than yours, Han, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, so that wraps up this installment. And you want to take us out for our next couple of podcasts?
Sure. For the next podcast, who isn't really our podcast, we will, as we mentioned, be visiting the Book versus Movie podcast, and we will be talking about the first two episodes of 11/22/63. The first one is called The Rabbit Hole, and the other The Killing Floor. So we will be talking about those, and for the next episode of our own podcast, we haven't really discussed exactly what we're going to talk about, but we will definitely talk about 11/22/63 and the episodes that have aired by that time. So make sure you stay updated to what happens with them, so you can join in and comment on them.
Yeah. If nothing else, the next book in the Stephen King Revisited website is The Long Walk, which is a good one.
It's a good one. It's one of my favorite books of King.
Yes, Mr. Darabont, what are you doing? Let's get going on this.
Yes. Drop everything else. Do this.
Yep. But until then, stay safe.
But
stay scared. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.